At work, my husband arrived with the family he hid for 25 years, so I handed him a secret box. I wasn't supposed to see it happen at my workplace. Not there, not on that Tuesday morning in September when I was preparing for an important meeting with clients. But when my husband Marcus walked through the glass entrance of my office building, holding the hand of a small child, and standing beside a woman I had never seen before, something inside me froze completely. 25 years. He'd had a hidden family for 25 years, a truth he carried while sleeping beside me every single night, while promising me forever, while building what I thought was our life together. The child, maybe 5 years old, clung to his leg. The other woman carefully avoided my eyes. And Marcus, my husband of 27 years, looked at me like a man whose secrets had finally run out of places to hide. But I didn't scream. I didn't break down. I didn't collapse the way he probably expected. I simply opened my bag, pulled out the secret box I had prepared months before this day, and placed it calmly in his trembling hands. Everyone in the lobby watched. No one breathed, because whatever was inside that box didn't just answer his betrayal. It ended the life we once shared. Before I take you into that lobby, into that moment when my entire world detonated in front of my colleagues and clients, you absolutely need to hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications. I share real, devastating, life-changing stories like this every single week. Stories about betrayal that spans decades, secrets that destroy families, moments when everything you believed turns out to be a lie. This workplace confrontation is one of the most shocking experiences I've ever lived through. So subscribe now, smash that like button because this story needs to reach everyone, and drop a comment right now telling me if you've ever discovered a secret that changed your entire understanding of your life. Because what I discovered about Marcus rewrote 27 years of my history. My name is Diana, I'm 52 years old, and that Tuesday morning 4 months ago was supposed to be ordinary. I'm a senior partner at a marketing consulting firm I helped build over 20 years. I was at work early preparing for a presentation to a potential major client. My assistant had just brought me coffee. I was reviewing slides in the conference room that overlooks our building's lobby, and that's when I saw them walk in. Marcus, the man I'd been married to for 27 years, a woman around my age, maybe slightly younger, with dark hair and a nervous expression, and a little girl, 5 or 6 years old, with curly hair and Marcus's eyes. Unmistakably Marcus's eyes. I stood at the conference room window watching them approach the reception desk, watching the receptionist pick up the phone, clearly calling to announce visitors, watching Marcus hold that little girl's hand with a tenderness I recognized because he'd held our own children's hands that way decades ago. And I knew, in that instant, before anyone said anything, before any explanation was offered, I knew with absolute certainty that I was looking at Marcus's other family, his secret family, the life he'd been living parallel to ours for God knows how long. My assistant knocked on the conference room door. "Diana, there's someone here to see you. Your husband? He says it's urgent." I took a breath, steadied myself, and walked down to that lobby carrying my bag, carrying the secret box I'd been keeping in my office drawer for 3 months. The box I'd prepared after I'd first started suspecting, after I'd started gathering evidence, after I'd realized that my husband of 27 years was not who I thought he was. If you're already shocked by this, hit that like button right now and leave a comment saying secret box so I know you're following this story. Marcus was standing in the lobby with the woman and child when I arrived. His face was pale, his hands shaking. The woman looked terrified. The little girl was oblivious, looking around the fancy lobby with wide, curious eyes. "Diana," Marcus started, his voice barely working. "I need to talk to you. I need to explain." "Not here," I said quietly, aware of the receptionist and the security guard, and the fact that my colleagues were starting to notice the scene unfolding. "Conference room 3. It's private." We walked to the small conference room in silence. Marcus, the woman, the child, and me. I closed the door behind us and turned to face them. The woman was crying silently. Marcus looked like he might vomit, and that little girl was humming to herself, completely unaware that her presence was detonating a 27-year marriage. "Her name is Sophia," Marcus said, gesturing to the woman. "And this is Emma. She's 5. She's Diana. She's my daughter. I didn't react. Just stood there looking at this man I'd shared my life with, trying to reconcile the Marcus I knew with this stranger who apparently had an entire other family. How long? I asked. How long have you been living this double life? Marcus couldn't meet my eyes. 26 years. I met Sophia 26 years ago at a conference. It started as, I don't know what it started as, but it became something I couldn't end. And when she got pregnant 5 years ago, I couldn't abandon my child. 26 years. He'd been with this woman for 26 years. 1 year into our marriage. 1 year after we'd promised forever to each other. For 26 years, he'd been living 2 lives, 2 families, 2 sets of promises, 2 versions of himself. Why are you here? I asked. Why bring them to my workplace? Why now? Subscribe to this channel right now, because what Marcus said next made everything even more devastating. Sophia spoke for the first time, her voice shaking. I didn't want to come here. I told Marcus this was wrong. But he said you needed to know because... She stopped, looking at Marcus like she was waiting for him to explain. Marcus took a breath. Sophia has cancer. Stage 4. The doctors say she has maybe 6 months, and she needs help with Emma. She needs someone to take care of our daughter after she's gone. And I can't do it alone. He stopped, unable to say it out loud. But I understood. He was here because his mistress of 26 years was dying, and he needed me to help raise his illegitimate child. The audacity of it made my vision blur with rage. Let me understand this, I said, my voice deadly calm. You've been cheating on me for 26 years. You have a 5-year-old child with another woman. That woman is dying. And you've brought them to my workplace to tell me you need my help raising your secret daughter. Is that correct? Marcus nodded miserably. I know how this sounds. Do you? I interrupted. Do you have any idea how this sounds? You destroyed our marriage 26 years ago and just never told me. You let me live a lie for over 2 decades. You let me believe we had a life together while you were building another life with someone else. And now you want me to clean up the consequences? Our kids, Marcus said desperately. David and Rachel. They have a half-sister. They should know Emma. And you're good with children. You could help. Sophia doesn't have family and I can't... Stop, I said. I pulled the box from my bag. The box I'd been preparing. The box that contained my own secrets. I placed it on the conference table between us. Before you say anything else, you need to open this. Leave a comment right now telling me what you think was in that box, because I guarantee you won't guess correctly. Marcus stared at the box like it might explode. What is this? Open it, I repeated. Everything you need to know is in there. Marcus opened the box with shaking hands. Inside were documents, photographs, evidence I'd been gathering for 3 months since I'd first started suspecting Marcus was hiding something. Bank statements showing accounts I wasn't supposed to know about. Property records for an apartment across town. The apartment where Sophia and Emma apparently lived. Phone records showing thousands of calls between Marcus and Sophia over decades. Credit card statements revealing a double life I'd never suspected. But that wasn't all the box contained. There were also divorce papers, already filled out, already signed by me, ready to be filed, and a letter. A long letter I'd written to Marcus 3 months ago when I'd first discovered evidence of his other life. A letter explaining that I'd known for 3 months, that I'd been investigating, that I'd been preparing for this confrontation, that I wasn't the naive wife he'd left behind every time he went to see his other family. Marcus read the letter, his face draining of all color. You knew? For 3 months you knew? I've suspected for longer, I said, but I confirmed it 3 months ago when I hired a private investigator. I know about Sophia. I know about Emma. I know about the apartment you've been renting for them for 5 years. I know about the lies you've told. To me, to them, to our children. I know everything, Marcus. And I've been preparing for this moment. Why didn't you say anything? Marcus asked, his voice breaking. Why let me keep lying if you knew? Because I needed time, I said. Time to document everything. Time to prepare financially. Time to make sure that when this marriage ended, it ended on my terms, not yours. Time to make sure our children would be financially protected from your deception. And time to make sure you'd have no advantage when we divorced. Sophia was crying harder now. I'm so sorry. I never wanted. I told Marcus we should tell you years ago. Don't, I said firmly. Don't apologize to me. You made choices. He made choices. You both chose this life. You both chose to deceive me for over 2 decades. And now you're facing consequences. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because what I said next changed everything for all of us. Here's what's going to happen, I said, my voice steady despite the rage coursing through me. Marcus, you will sign these divorce papers today. No negotiation, no fighting. You will accept the settlement I've outlined, which gives me the majority of marital assets since I can prove you've been funneling money to support your second family for years. You will maintain relationships with David and Rachel if they choose to continue having one with you after they learn what you've done. But you will not ask me for help with Emma. You will not ask our children to step into a situation you created through deception. But Sophia is dying, Marcus protested. Emma will need care, I interrupted. But not from me. Not from the woman whose life you destroyed. Not from the wife you betrayed for 26 years. You have 6 months before Sophia, before Emma needs a permanent guardian. Use those 6 months to figure out custody arrangements that don't involve me. Diana, please, Marcus started, but I held up my hand. I'm not finished. You will also be explaining this to David and Rachel yourself. Today, you will tell our children that they have a 5-year-old half-sister you've been hiding. You will tell them that you've been living a double life their entire adult lives. You will face their reactions without me there to buffer or explain or make excuses for you. This is your mess. You get to clean it up. And Sophia, I turned to the other woman, I'm sorry you're sick. I genuinely am. But you knew Marcus was married when you started this affair. You knew there was a wife, and eventually children. You made choices that contributed to this situation, and now you're facing consequences. I will not be caring for your daughter. I will not be stepping in to fix what you and Marcus broke. The room was silent for several long seconds. Emma, who'd been quiet through this entire confrontation, suddenly spoke up. Daddy, why is the lady angry? Marcus picked up Emma, holding her while tears streamed down his face. Because Daddy made mistakes. Very big mistakes. The divorce papers are in the box, I said. Sign them. Have your lawyer look them over if you want, but you'll find they're fair given the circumstances. More than fair, actually, considering I could take you for everything for this level of deception. You have until Friday to sign and return them. After that, I'm filing anyway, and making this as public and painful as possible. Share this video right now with anyone who needs to understand that you don't have to be a victim of someone else's choices. I left that conference room, left Marcus and Sophia and little Emma sitting there with the secret box that contained all my preparation, all my evidence, all my power in this situation. I went back to my office, closed the door, and only then did I let myself shake. Only then did I let the reality of what had just happened crash over me. My husband had been living a double life for 26 years, had another family I knew nothing about, had a 5-year-old daughter, and he'd hidden it all so perfectly that I'd never suspected until 3 months ago. 3 months ago, I'd noticed irregularities in our bank accounts, money missing that Marcus couldn't quite explain. I'd started investigating, cautiously, quietly, without Marcus knowing. Had hired a private investigator who'd uncovered the truth. Had discovered the apartment Marcus rented across town. Had found records of Sophia and Emma. Had documented years of financial deception and emotional betrayal. And I'd prepared the divorce papers, prepared the evidence, prepared myself emotionally for the confrontation I knew was coming eventually. I just hadn't expected it to come at my workplace. Hadn't expected Marcus to bring his other family to my office building. Hadn't expected to face all of this in front of my colleagues and clients. But in a way, his choice of location had worked in my favor, made his deception public, made it impossible for him to control the narrative, made it clear to everyone who witnessed it that I wasn't the villain in this story. My assistant knocked on my door an hour later. Diana? Are you okay? Everyone's talking about, should I cancel your meetings? No, I said, pulling myself together. I have a presentation to give. I'll be ready in 10 minutes. Because I wasn't going to let Marcus's betrayal destroy my career. Wasn't going to let his choices derail the professional life I'd built. Wasn't going to give him that power. I gave that presentation. Nailed it, actually. Landed the client. And afterward, I went home to face the harder conversation, telling our adult children that their father had been living a double life, and they had a 5-year-old half-sister they'd never known about. If this story is resonating with you, leave a comment right now about the hardest conversation you've ever had to have with your family. David and Rachel, our children, were both in their mid-20s. David was 26, working as an engineer. Rachel was 24, in medical school. They'd both always adored their father, seen him as stable, reliable, devoted to family. Learning the truth was devastating for them. I called them both over that evening, sat them down, and told them everything. About the affair that had lasted 26 years. About Sophia. About Emma. About their father's secret second family. About the confrontation at my office that morning. About the divorce papers I'd prepared. David's reaction was rage. Pure, immediate rage at Marcus for the deception, for the betrayal, for destroying our family. Rachel's reaction was heartbreak. She cried for hours, unable to reconcile the father she'd known with the man capable of this level of deception. How could he do this? Rachel kept asking. How could he lie to us for our entire lives? I don't know, I answered honestly. People are capable of compartmentalizing in ways that seem impossible until you see it happen. Marcus called that evening. Called our house phone, my cell, the kids' phones. We didn't answer. He showed up at the house around 9 p.m. David answered the door. I heard him tell his father to leave. Heard Marcus begging to explain. Heard David say, "You had 26 years to explain. You chose to lie instead. Now we're choosing not to listen." Marcus left, and I filed the divorce papers the next morning. Subscribe and hit that notification bell because the aftermath of this story is just as important as the confrontation itself. The divorce moved quickly. Marcus didn't fight. Couldn't fight, really, given the evidence I had. He signed the papers, accepted the settlement that gave me the house, the majority of our savings, his retirement accounts. He moved into the apartment with Sophia and Emma. Our friends found out. His colleagues found out. The story spread through our social circle like wildfire, and reactions were mixed. Some people were sympathetic to Marcus, felt he'd been trapped in an impossible situation, but most people were horrified. Couldn't understand how he'd maintained 2 families for over 2 decades. Couldn't fathom the level of deception required. Sophia's condition deteriorated rapidly. The cancer progressed faster than doctors had expected. She died 3 months after that confrontation in my office, and Marcus was left as the single father of a 5-year-old daughter, while dealing with the destruction of his marriage to me and his fractured relationships with David and Rachel. He reached out multiple times asking for help. Asking if I'd reconsider being part of Emma's life, asking if David and Rachel would want to know their half-sister, and I held firm. No, this was Marcus's situation to handle. These were consequences of choices he'd made for 26 years. I wouldn't be cleaning up his mess, but David and Rachel surprised me. After several months, after processing their anger and grief, they decided they wanted to meet Emma, wanted to know their half-sister who was innocent in all of this. They started having supervised visits with her, started building a relationship with this little girl who'd lost her mother, and whose father was a stranger to her in many ways. They didn't do it for Marcus. They did it for Emma, who they recognized as a victim of Marcus's choices just as much as we were. I supported their decision even though I couldn't participate in it. Emma was their sister. They had a right to that relationship, but I couldn't have a relationship with the physical embodiment of my husband's betrayal. Couldn't look at that little girl without seeing 26 years of lies. Maybe that makes me cold. Maybe that makes me unforgiving. But it's the truth of where I am emotionally. It's been 4 months since that Tuesday morning in September. 4 months since Marcus walked into my workplace with his secret family. 4 months since I handed him that box containing all my preparation and power. The divorce is finalized. Marcus is struggling as a single father, trying to raise a daughter he barely knows while maintaining a career that's been damaged by the scandal. David and Rachel are slowly building relationships with Emma while maintaining careful distance from their father. And I'm rebuilding my life as a newly single woman after 27 years of marriage. People ask if I regret how I handled it, if I regret being so cold, so prepared, so unforgiving. And honestly, no, because that preparation, that box of evidence and divorce papers and documentation, That was my power in a situation where I could have been powerless. If Marcus had controlled the narrative, if he'd told me about his other family on his terms and timeline, I would have been the one scrambling. I would have been the one caught off guard with no preparation or resources. But instead, I was prepared. I'd been investigating. I'd been documenting. I'd been building my case for 3 months before he ever showed up at my office. And that preparation meant when the confrontation came, I had control. Hit that like button if you believe preparation is power, and subscribe for more stories about taking control of your narrative. The secret box was symbolic. It represented everything Marcus didn't know I knew. Everything I'd been quietly discovering and documenting while he thought he was successfully hiding his double life. Bank records he didn't know I'd accessed. Property records he thought were private. Phone logs he assumed I'd never see. Photographs from the private investigator. Divorce papers prepared in advance. Everything organized and ready to present when the moment came. And when Marcus brought his secret family to my workplace thinking he was finally revealing the truth on his terms, I revealed that I'd known and been preparing. That his secret was no longer secret to me. That I'd been 3 steps ahead of him for months. That's what the box represented. Not just evidence. Not just divorce papers. But the fact that I'd taken a situation where I could have been a victim and turned it into a situation where I had agency, where I had power, where I could control what happened next instead of just reacting to Marcus's choices. Some people might say I should have confronted him immediately when I first discovered the affair 3 months earlier. That waiting while knowing was cruel or dishonest. But those people don't understand strategic thinking. If I'd confronted Marcus the moment I discovered Sophia and Emma, I would have been emotionally devastated and unprepared. He could have controlled the narrative, could have manipulated the financial aspects of our divorce, could have presented his story in ways that made him more sympathetic. But by waiting, by preparing, by documenting everything, I made sure that when the truth came out, it came out with me in the position of strength. The box also contained something I haven't mentioned yet. Something that made the situation even more complex. DNA test results. Because one of the things my private investigator had done was obtain DNA samples from Emma through completely legal means during surveillance. And we'd run paternity tests. Because I needed to know for certain that Marcus was Emma's biological father before I destroyed my marriage over his claims. The results confirmed it. Emma was definitely Marcus's biological daughter. And that confirmation was in the box too. Proof that this wasn't just an affair, this was a child, a permanent consequence of 26 years of deception. When Marcus opened that box and saw not just the evidence of what I knew, but the paternity test confirming Emma was his, he understood that I'd been thorough, that I'd left no room for him to deny or minimize, that I'd built a case that was airtight, and that preparation meant he couldn't fight me, couldn't claim I was being irrational or emotional. Couldn't argue that I didn't have all the facts, because I had more facts than he realized, had been more thorough than he'd ever imagined, had taken what could have been my weakest moment and turned it into my strongest position. Share this video with anyone who needs to understand that you can take control even in situations that seem hopeless. Today, I'm 4 months into my new life. I'm 52 years old, divorced after 27 years of marriage, and rebuilding everything from scratch. My career is strong. Stronger, actually, because work became my focus during those 3 months when I was investigating and preparing. My relationship with David and Rachel has deepened through shared trauma and recovery. My financial situation is stable because I made sure to protect myself during the divorce. And my emotional state is complex. I'm angry. I'm grieving the marriage I thought I had. I'm processing 27 years that were based on lies. But I'm also free. Free from a relationship built on deception, free from a husband who was never fully mine, free from the future I would have had if I'd never discovered the truth. Marcus's life is much harder. He's a single father to a 5-year-old daughter while grieving the woman he loved for 26 years. His relationship with our adult children is damaged, possibly permanently. His career has suffered because people in our social circle don't trust someone capable of that level of deception. His reputation is destroyed. And he did it to himself, made choices for 26 years that led to this exact outcome. I feel no sympathy. Maybe that makes me heartless, but but I can't feel sorry for someone who had countless opportunities over 2 decades to tell the truth and chose deception every single time. The most frequent question I get asked is whether I'll ever have a relationship with Emma, whether I'll eventually soften and agree to be part of her life since she's David and Rachel's sister. And my honest answer is, I don't know. Right now, I can't. Right now, looking at that little girl means seeing every lie Marcus told, every night he came home from Sophia's apartment and climbed into bed with me pretending everything was normal, every holiday and anniversary and milestone he celebrated with 2 different families. Emma is innocent, but she's also a permanent reminder of my husband's betrayal. Maybe in time, when I've had more healing, when the anger has faded, I'll be able to separate Emma the child from what she represents. But right now, I can't. And I'm not going to force myself to do something I'm not emotionally ready for just to appear more sympathetic or forgiving. Because here's the truth that no one wants to say out loud. Victims of betrayal don't owe their betrayers anything. Not forgiveness, not understanding, not help cleaning up consequences, not a relationship with the children born from affairs, nothing. We get to decide what our healing looks like. We get to decide what boundaries we need. We get to decide whether forgiveness happens or doesn't. And right now, my decision is to focus on my own recovery, my relationships with my adult children, and my career. Emma has her father. She has David and Rachel building a relationship with her. She'll be okay without me in her life, and I'll be okay setting that boundary. If you've made it this far in this story, thank you for being here. Drop a comment saying secret box so I know you stayed to the end. Hit that like button one more time. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Turn on notifications. Share this video with someone who's dealing with betrayal and needs to know they can take control of their narrative. Because that's the real message here. You're not powerless. Even in situations that seem hopeless, you have choices about how you respond. At work, my husband arrived with the family he hid for 25 years. But I was prepared. I'd been investigating. I'd been documenting. I'd been building my power in a situation designed to make me powerless. And when he showed up expecting to control the revelation of his secret, I handed him a box that proved I'd been controlling the narrative for months. His secret family was devastating, but my preparation was more powerful. And in that moment, in that conference room at my workplace, I took what could have been my destruction and turned it into my liberation. The end.